Genesis 39, and we're going to finish out the last few verses of Genesis 39 and jump into Genesis chapter 40 on today. This is part 2 of our message, setups disguised as setbacks. Last week we noted that life is like a boxing match where we enter into the ring with our sights set on a championship victory, but before we know it, we've been hit with a combination of punches and that's landed us on the mat. And we ask ourselves as we are on the mat, how did we get here? And am I going to get up? And if I do get up, what do I need to do so I don't land on the mat again? Life is like that, and Joseph's life is surely like that. And this week, Joseph experiences his final setback because all of his setbacks are really God's plans and purposes as God is moving him toward a setup. But there has been a series of setbacks, and we're going to summarize that in the end. But this week is the final setback because God is going to set him up moving forward. Genesis 39, there are really two movements. And here's the big sort of meta theme for today is, again, the journey to wherever God has taken us is fraught with setups disguised as setbacks. And that's hard for us to hear. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around. Why can't God just set us up? Why can't He just bless us and allow us to flourish and thrive and prosper? Why is it 2 steps forward and 1 step back? Why is it 4 steps forward and then 2 steps back? Why the back and forth? Why can't God just take us forward? We all wonder, God, why the failures? Why the disappointments? Why the setbacks? Why do I need to, like in Monopoly, why do I need to go back to go? God, why can't you just move me forward? I just want to go forward. And we talked about last week that God is more interested in our character than our charisma, right? The thing that God is trying to cultivate us is a Christ-like character. And the best way we learn that is through the failures and the disappointments and the setbacks. It's just like that for all of God's men and women, and we are no different. And so Joseph is in that sort of that lab with God, experiencing the setbacks in life. 2 major movements today. The first one is Joseph is favored by the prison warden. Remember, Joseph is detained in prison on a false rape attempt charged by Potiphar's wife. He's innocent. We know he's innocent. It is the innocent that are incarcerated, and sometimes it is the guilty who are set free, right? In a broken justice system like the one we have in America, and so it was in Joseph's day. But I got a couple of F's. He's favored by the prison warden, and then we're going to see that he's forgotten by one of his fellow prisoners. But let's look at Joseph's favor, because Joseph is disappointed. He's honored God by not having this adulterous affair with Potiphar's wife. He did the right thing, and the right thing landed him in prison. And so Joseph is disappointed. But it's not long that Joseph is in prison that God's favor shows up in Joseph's life again. Look right off the bat in verse 21. It says, "But Yahweh was with Joseph and extended chesed to him and granted him favor with the prison warden." Joseph gets 2 things from God. He gets the chesed of God, and he gets the hin from God. 2 N words in the Hebrew. Chesed is the inexpressible word that we try to put together as loving kindness. And then he gets the hin. Hin is grace, favor, fortune from God. And Joseph gets both. Remember, it could be perceived, man, if you're in prison, you've done something wrong. And here God declares to Joseph, hey, I see you. I know you did the right thing. I know you put your character above your career. And brother, I'm with you. And so God's loving kindness is with Yosef in the prison. Now, you guys have heard me harp on chesed so many times in the past. We talked about it in our summer series. We said that love is kind, and we chronicled that. What I didn't give you in the sermon series, I thought maybe it is appropriate to give you on today. Chesed is one of those words in the Bible that is so loaded, it's so pregnant, it's so heavy. It's one of those words that is difficult to translate because it's so packed with meaning. So I've given you, just thrown every word that chesed could probably mean in the text. You've got this slide so that you have it, and I hope that your hair is on fire. But chesed is this inexpressible word, but let's try to express it. Chesed is love. It is loving kindness, merciful love, loyal love, sure love, relentless love, enduring love, extravagant love, affectionate satisfaction, love and action, dependable love, steady love, true love, fundamental love, miracle love, generous love, deep love, wonderful love, great love, incredible love, marvelous love, gracious love, loyal in love, steadfast in love, expression of love, election love, unfailing love, faithful love, tons of love, loving instruction, loving deeds, covenant of love, covenant friendship, covenant commitment, gracious covenant, loyalty, covenant loyalty, loyal faithfulness, great loyalty, unswavering loyalty, love, loyal mercy, loyal service, kindness, kindly, divine kindness, loyal kindness, godly kindness, merciful kindness, great kindness, everlasting kindness. Where are we? Everlasting kindness, mercy, mercy work, mercy feelings, miracle mercy, generous mercy, benevolence, compassion, persistent faithfulness, faithful act, reliable solidarity, goodwill, ardent zeal, grace, graciousness, extravagant generosity, largesse, glory, honor, honoring. And then on the negative side, it could mean a pit or clemency, a rock, bedrock, God-fearing, piety, charity, strength, devout, active, goodness, favor, immense favor, loyal friendship, good-heartedness, immense favor, working graciously, a generous yes, endlessly patient, a generous act of goodness, devotion, devoted work, commitment, goodness, good deeds, gracious dealings, beauty, and then on the negative side, disgrace, reproach, shameful things, wicked things. On the positive side, stick with me, stick by, stick with, big-hearted, unlimited, unconditional, unconditioned, and all-inclusive love for all of creation. All of that's packed into this one word, chesed. You guys tracking with me? That was a mouthful, wasn't it? That's the reason why we struggle to translate that word. It's one of the only words in the Bible that's so loaded, it's difficult to translate. But all of that, Joseph has got. All of that chesed, all of that loving kindness, all of that faithfulness, all of God's loyal love is on Joseph, even though he is in prison, locked up and confined on a trumped up charge. Not only that, but Joseph has extended and experienced the favor of God, the heen of God, God's fortune, God's goodwill toward him. And notice that God's chesed and God's heen is made aware by the prison warden in verse 21. So the prison warden recognizes that God's blessing and favor is on Yosef. And look at what he does in verses 22 and 23. Look at what the prison warden does. So the prison warden put all of the prisoners who were in prison under Joseph's authority, and he was responsible for everything that was done in the prison. The warden didn't bother with anything under Joseph's authority because Yahweh was with him. And Yahweh made everything that Joseph did successful. Sounds much like the way God had favored Joseph, and it allowed his loving kindness to land and live on Joseph when he was in Potiphar's house last week. So the same grace and favor and goodwill of God in Potiphar's house is now on Joseph in the prison. The same way Potiphar delegated responsibility and made Joseph the master of his house last week, now the prison warden has made Joseph the master of the prison. Joseph thinks that, oh man, I'm in a horrible place. I'm in jail. I am in prison. But man, look, God has set me up, and now I'm master over the prison. Joseph thinks that things are looking up for him. And he's got a reason to believe that God is going to finally set him up. But what Joseph unfortunately discovers in chapter 40 in our next movement is that Joseph is forgotten by one of his fellow prisoners. He's favored by the warden, but he's forgotten in his final setback on his journey to his great setup. Let's look at verses 1 through 4, because in verses 1 through 4, we get some insight into Joseph's fellow detainees. He's in prison, but he's also being detained by some fellow prisoners. And Moshe wants to give us a backstory into who's in prison with Joseph. It says, after this, the king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and chief baker, and he put the two of them in custody in the house of the captain of the guards in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guards assigned Joseph to them as their personal attendant, and they were in custody for some time. Verse 1 tells us that the Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker were engaged in some indiscretion, some sin, some offense. They ticked off the most powerful man in the world, and he sends them to prison for whatever the indiscretion, whatever the misdeed was. They are landed in prison and incarcerated with Joseph in verses 2 and 3. So there's an indiscretion in verse 1, and then there's an incarceration in verses 2 and 3. Now notice something. I want you to notice in verse 3, don't miss this point, that they're put into custody. They are incarcerated in the house of the captain of the guards. Who is the captain of the guards from last week? It's Potiphar, right? Remember, Potiphar is the captain of the guards. Now, I'm not sure how this worked, but Potiphar has a prison attached to his home. Weird, not sure I'd want to live in a home where prisoners are somehow attached to my property. But as the captain of the guards, Potiphar has a mini prison attached to his home. And so when he throws Joseph in prison for the false rape attempt last week, Joseph is imprisoned on the property that he used to be the manager and master of. But he's incarcerated. And so the chief cupbearer and baker are now incarcerated and imprisoned along with Joseph on Potiphar's property. Don't miss that point. Because the captain of the guards is the one that assigns Joseph to be the personal assistant and attendant to the cupbearer and the baker. It makes sense that it would be Potiphar because Potiphar knows that God's hand is on Joseph. Potiphar knows from 11 years of Joseph serving in his house that he prospered when Joseph came on board. And so Potiphar wants the chief baker and cupbearer to have a good experience because he thinks that may win him some favor maybe with the king. And so he assigns Joseph to the cupbearer and the baker because he knows Joseph is going to serve them well. Why? Because he served Potiphar well. Joseph's reputation is preceding him, and it's aiding and abetting his fortune. Now, Joseph is rubbing shoulders with some of the king's personal confidants and the people that are closest to the king. Don't miss what God is doing. It's happening in prison, but God is still working on Joseph's setup, even though he's in a position that looks like this is a major setback. He's already got a good reputation with Potiphar. This also ought to tell us and confirm last week. Remember when we said that Potiphar was angry, he was furious, and we debated about whether Potiphar was furious with his wife or with Joseph about the rape allegation? This ought to be further proof that he was probably more furious with his wife than he was Joseph. Because here he is taking this attempted rapist and making him the personal attendants of some of the king's most trusted confidants. That ought to confirm where we landed on last week, that we landed in the right place. And so Joseph is being blessed, and Potiphar is engaged in this blessing. God is using even the people that may not be happy with him. God is using them to bless Joseph. Now, these detainees, the cupbearer and the chief baker, these detainees and their dreams in verses 5 through 8. Watch this. It says, the king of Egypt's cupbearer and the baker who were confined in the prison, each had a dream. Both had a dream on the same night, and each dream had its own meaning. And when Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they looked distraught. Joseph sees that they look wretched. They look pitiful. They look vexed. They're greatly troubled when he comes to check on them in the morning and see what the day is going to look like and how he might serve them. He recognizes these guys haven't had a dream. It looks like they've had a nightmare. And Joseph, because he's so attentive and compassionate and such a wise, skillful, engaged steward, look at what Joseph says. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were in custody with him in his master's house, why do you look so sad today? They answer in verse 8, we had dreams, they told him, but there's no one to interpret them. And Joseph said, watch this, this is beautiful. I love Joseph. Joseph said, don't interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. Joseph is inferring, hey, dream interpretations and discernment of dreams, that belongs to God. And I am a friend of God. I'm a man of God. So tell me your dreams. Oh man, that's so good. Joseph's not taking credit as if. Remember when he was on his way to meet his brothers at Dothan. Remember when they saw him in the distance coming in his glitzy garment, and they saw him in the distance. What did his brothers say? Here comes that dream expert. Here's the Lord and the master of dreams coming. Y'all see him coming in the distance, don't you? This whole downward decline and cycle started with Yosef about some dreams he had. And his brothers mocked him and ridiculed him as the master of dreams. And Joseph is still getting dreams. Not only is he dreaming, but God is giving him the charisma and the gift to be able to interpret dreams. It's interesting. Sometimes what people say about you to mock you and to ridicule you and put you down is the very thing they may be speaking into existence about where God is taking you. I remember, this is not in my notes, but it's in my heart. I was a smart little kid. I got into every single thing I could possibly get into when I was a kid, and I was just a nightmare to be around. Because if there was trouble involved, I was in it. I was either at the center of it or I was an accomplice, but I was always in it. And I always had a lot of lip and a lot of talk back to go with it, which is why I got plenty of good beatings, because I just didn't know how to be quiet, because I was always because I was thinking. I've been a thinker for a long time, and when I think, I talk. And my aunt used to say, "Shut up, Daryl," and I'd still be talking. Didn't I tell you to shut up? And I'd still be talking. And my aunt used to say to me, she said, she used to mock me and ridicule me because I wouldn't stop reasoning through situation. She would call me, "Okay, Mr. Professor." That was to put me down. 6, 7, 8 years old, 9-year-old kid who won't shut up. Okay, you know, we got to listen to the professor. And it's interesting because now I'm teaching at Talbot and I am a professor. I had no idea. I just felt bad because it was a slight. It wasn't a compliment at all. 40 years later, here I am. What his brothers ridiculed him, here comes this master of dreams. Oh, they were right. They were using it as a dig on their little brother, but they had no idea they were speaking prophetically. Joseph is the master and the Lord of dreams. Pay attention to the ridicule that people are saying about you. Pay attention, write it down, take a picture, email it, do whatever you got to do, because God, it may be that very thing that may be your setup. That may be an insight, a window into your destiny and where God is taking you. I don't know who that's for, but if it fits you, then wear it. The cupbearer and the baker are distraught. They're vexed. They look like they are greatly troubled, not because of the dreams. They don't know what the dreams mean, but their anxiety is simply because of the fact that there's no one to interpret the dream. That's what the trouble is. Hey, man, what are we going to do? We've had these dreams, and remember, in the ancient world, they believed that dreams were from the gods and that they had a meaning and a significance for something that was going to happen in the near future or the distant future. So they didn't ignore dreams in the ancient world. I love this because Victor Hamilton said, in the ancient world, a dream without an accompanying interpretation is like a diagnosis without a prognosis. Whenever we get a diagnosis from the doctor, we just don't want the diagnosis and go home. We want the diagnosis, and then what do we want? We need a prognosis. Okay, doc, so that's the problem. You're telling me this is what's going on. So how do we fix this? Is it with medicine, with treatment, surgery? What is the prognosis? To have a dream without an interpretation is like having a diagnosis without a prognosis. And so there is a problem. I love this. Joseph's theology takes center stage in verse 8. Joseph is understanding that God is sovereign over human dreams, events, and affairs. He says, don't interpretations belong to God? Joseph therefore deduces that he can interpret the dreams because God will give him the meaning and the discernment of his fellow detainees' dreams. So they have dreams in verses 5 through 8, and then Joseph is going to discern their dreams in verses 9 through 19. First, the cupbearer. So they're excited. Oh, you mean to tell me there's a meaning, someone who is able to discern these dreams? So the chief cupbearer steps up and he told his dream to Joseph in verse 9. He says, in my dream there was a vine in front of me, and on the vine there were 3 branches, And as soon as, watch the three actions there. So the first dream is in threes. This vine has three branches, and watch these three actions. As soon as it budded, one, it blossomed, two, and then the blossoms came out, and then its clusters ripened in the grapes. Budded, blossomed, and ripened. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and squeezed them in the Pharaoh's cup and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. Joseph says to the cupbearer, this is its interpretation. Joseph said to him, the three branches are 3 days. In just 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand the way you used to when you were his cupbearer. When all goes well. So Joseph interprets the cupbearer's dream and says, oh man, this is, your dream has a happy ending. You're going to be restored in 3 days to your previous position. Whatever ought you had, however you ticked off the king, you're going to be forgiven and restored to your former position. And that is happy day. I'm sure that the cupbearer was doing his hallelujah dance at Joseph's interpretation of his dream. Joseph takes this opportunity now that he's won favor with the cupbearer, who in 3 days will be back at the king's right hand, advising the king and one of his most trusted officials. Joseph takes this opportunity to say, hey man, put in a word for me when you get to the king. In verses 14 and 15, watch how Joseph sells himself and asks for a favor. Verses 14 and 15, Joseph says, but when all goes well for you, remember that I was with you. Number one. Number two, please show chesed to me by mentioning me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. Joseph says, for I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing that they should put me in the dungeon. Joseph reasons on two levels. First, he says, my loyalty is evident to the cupbearer. Joseph emphatically pleads with the cupbearer to remember him twice. He said, I've been loyal to you. Verse 14, he says, but when all goes well for you, remember that I was with you. I didn't I served you well. I was with you in your hour of need. I attended you. Remember, I was with you. I was loyal to you. You were distressed, and I was here for you. Now, remember me, and you be loyal to me when you are before Pharaoh. Remember, no pun intended, that the Hebrew word zakar is not simply about recollection, but it's more about rescue. You guys remember that from early on in the various texts in Genesis that God, when it's said that God zakars someone, the text is not referring to recollection, but it's highlighting rescue. Because when you remember someone, you're moved to come and to deliver and to save and to rescue that individual. And so here Joseph is pointing to the cupbearer. He says, hey, when you're back at your posts, come and rescue your boy. I love this quote from Victor Hamilton. He says that just as the cupbearer is unable to interpret his own dream, Joseph is unable to make his own defense before Pharaoh. Each needs the help of the other. Joseph says, hey man, I helped you. Now can you help me? Can you talk to your boss for me? You needed me and I was there for you. Now I need you. Will you remember me? Not just recollection, but will you come to my rescue? loyalty. Then Joseph in verse 15 points to his legality. He cites the injustice that has happened to him. Not just what happened last week with with Potiphar's wife, but he also cites the injustice from his brothers. He said, I've endured 2 injustices. My brothers kidnapped me. In Exodus, kidnapping amongst the Israelites was a capital offense. He says, I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews. That was the first injustice that happened to me. And he said, I'm in this prison, not because you guys did something wrong. I'm in here, I'm innocent. So could somebody deal with this travesty of justice that is my life? Can somebody help me deal with this injustice that I'm dealing with? Can you talk to the king and get me out of here? And notice he's on house arrest like the cupbearer and the baker. But notice Joseph sees it, and notice he refers to it as a dungeon. Get me out of this dungeon. He's on house arrest. He ain't doing hard time. In the Hebrew, this word bore refers to this. Look at this quote that I did give you from Kenneth Matthews. Look at this about this dungeon idea. It says that Joseph's choice of the word dungeon is the word bore in the Hebrew. It's the same word for cistern in which his brothers had confined him in Genesis 37. In effect, he's protesting that he had been wrongly incarcerated from dungeon to dungeon. Such reprehensible mistreatment merited redress, which the cupbearer could facilitate. Joseph says, my brothers threw me in the dungeon, that cistern, that big water hole, and now I'm in another dungeon. I'm in another pit. I didn't do anything to my brothers to deserve their mistreatment, and I've done nothing to Potiphar to deserve, or to his wife to deserve to be in this prison. But Pharaoh can get me out of here, cupbearer, if you just plead my case, or just give me an opportunity to make my case to Pharaoh. And if he hears the injustice that I've endured, he will set me free. You guys tracking with me? So after Joseph makes his case, I love this. This is funny because the baker said, man, well, the cupbearer just got a favorable interpretation of his dream. Well, if his dream is positive, we both dreamed on the same night, then maybe mine's going to be positive. Maybe I'm going to get my job back too. His dream doesn't have the same happy ending. He thought it would, but it did not. Watch this. Verse 16 through 19. And when the chief baker saw that the interpretation was positive, he said to Joseph, I also had a dream. 3 baskets of white bread were on my head. His dream comprises 3s like the cupbearer. And in the top basket were all sorts of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. Yeah, Angela, you're right. That don't even sound good. Verse 18, this is its interpretation, Joseph replied. The 3 baskets are 3 days, kind of like the 3 branches in the cupbearer's dream. Verse 19, in just 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head as well like the cupbearer, but he's going to lift it from off of you and hang you on a tree. And the birds that you saw nipping at that basket, they're going to eat the flesh from your body. How bad for the baker. Gordon Wenham makes the observation that I thought was interesting. He says, usually Egyptians didn't leave corpses exposed. Remember, they mummified people. They believe in dignified burials. So whatever the baker did, I have no idea what he did. But the Pharaoh goes against customs and normal practices to subject him to be devoured by scavenging birds. Gordon Wenham says this treatment was designed to prevent the baker's spirit from resting in the afterlife. Pharaoh wanted to punish him in this life and the one to come, according to Egyptian sort of ideas of the afterlife. I want to know, what did he do that was that bad? Maybe he was involved in a coup to try to poison the Pharaoh, and he gave him some poisonous food from the kitchen, and he was found out, and now it is turned on his head. Now, last few verses, in verses 20 through 23, one of the detainees displays a disappointing disloyalty to Joseph. But look at how God delivers on the dream interpretation that Joseph gave. The events happened just as Joseph said they would. Why? Because God was with him. Verse 20, it says, on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he gave a feast for all of his servants. We don't know if this was Pharaoh's birthday. We don't know if the Egyptians in the ancient world celebrated birthdays. But this also could have been a celebration for what they call an accession celebration. When a king, the date that a king rose to the throne, they would celebrate that annually. So if you came on the throne on January 10th, every year on January 10th, they would celebrate this. On this day, King so-and-so became king. Right? And that may be more closer to what is being celebrated here, his accession anniversary, but some people think it may have been a birthday. Anyway, it's one of those celebrations. And he gave a feast for all of his servants, and he elevated the chief cupbearer and chief baker among the servants. When Pharaoh restored the chief cupbearer to his position as cupbearer, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But Pharaoh hanged the chief baker just as Joseph had explained to him. 3 days, and God has delivered on his message to the cupbearer and baker. Now here's Joseph's fellow detainees' disappointing disloyalty to Joseph, because what does he ask him after he gave him his interpretation? Remember me. Verse 23 is the final setback in Joseph's way to the great setup. It says, and watch how Moshe says this, don't miss this, yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Yosef, he forgot him. Notice the redundancy. He didn't need to say that twice. Moses just should have said he didn't remember Joseph. Or he could have said he forgot Joseph. Why does he say he didn't remember Joseph, he forgot him? Why does he tell us that twice? The redundancy is to drive home, to emphatically state the point clear, and so that it lands on us in a heavy way, that in 3 days after Joseph gave him the greatest news of his life, he saw what happened to his to his colleague, the baker. That the fact that he's been given a reprieve, and obviously he did something that landed him in prison with the baker in the first place, but he got his life back and the other guy lost his life. And what does he do when he's standing at the right hand of Pharaoh, holding the king, the most powerful man's cup in his hand? What does he do? He doesn't remember the guy in the prison who gave him the good news in the first place. You ever been forgotten by some folks that made it to the promised land, that got that job, got that position, got that blessing, and they said, hey man, if I get this, I'm going to try to find a way to bring you on or to help you or to bless you or to move you forward, or I'm going to put in a good word for you, give you a recommendation, or I'm going to make sure that the loan officer gets your thing, and they know you. You ever been promised something, you did a solid for somebody, and they said, I'm going to pay it forward and I'm going to bless you, and then when the time came, there was crickets. When the time came, it was radio silence. They didn't deliver on the promise that they said that they were going to help you, bless you, help you get ahead, bring you on. You ever? He didn't remember Joseph. Not 3 months later, not 3 years later, 3 days, 72 hours later, he's so enamored by being with the king that he's forgotten Joseph. How do you think Joseph felt? Devastated. He pleaded with the guy to remember me. I love, I gave you this summary in your text again from Victor Hamilton. There was just some good stuff I had to share with you. Look at Victor Hamilton's summary of Genesis 37 and 39, not the story of Judah and Tamar, but just 37 and 39 as he summarizes the 3 setbacks in Joseph's life. Victor Hamilton says this. He says, for sharing his sense of divine destiny, Joseph finds himself sold by his brothers to some caravanners going to Egypt, his first setback. For refusing to compromise his moral standards and a sense of duty to his superiors, he's falsely accused and cast in prison, his second setback. In spite of the fact that he helps a fellow prisoner, that prisoner refuses or forgets to reciprocate when he has the chance to help Joseph. Here is a chain of 3 aggravating setbacks for Joseph. One at the hand of his brothers, a second at the hand of Potiphar and his lying, conniving wife, and then the third by being forgotten by the cupbearer. God, I thought you were blessing me. What happened to your chesed and your hin? What happened to your loving kindness and your favor in my life? I thought you made me the master of the prison. How could he forget me? I thought you were blessing me. If I'm your man and your anointing is on me, how can he forget me? And you're going to see next week, the first verse in chapter 41 is Joseph was in prison 2 more years after that. Can you imagine how Joseph lived out them 2 years? Forgotten. A couple of weeks ago, we sung the song, I Am Not Forgotten. I am not forsaken. I am a friend of God. You call me friend. Because the cupbearer didn't call Joseph anything, he didn't even remember. But it's good to know that when we are forsaken and forgotten, that God still calls us friend. Look at the Coram Deo. In the presence and before the face of God. 3 takeaways. People will forsake and forget us, but God never will. Somebody ought to be glad about that. Joseph is a living witness that when friends and family members and co-workers and colleagues and neighbors and the people that are in your relational world and your sphere of influence, when they forget about you, when they forsake you, when they abandon you, when they leave you alone, when they don't deliver on their promises, when they don't bring you on board with them to experience the blessings of God with them, God hadn't forsaken you. God cannot abandon his own, and we are his own. We are his sons and daughters, and no parent worth their salt can forget about their own flesh and blood. Joseph is forgotten. He's forsaken. He is the poor and the powerless. He is the lost and the lonely. But even in those moments, we got to shout it from the mountain. Y'all seen where the worship was this morning? The poor and the powerless are the ones that shouted from the mountains. Go ahead and scream it from every place that God is God. Number two, God is sovereign over human dreams, events, and affairs. God has set up this whole thing. All of these setbacks are really just God's setup is really just disguised in all of these setbacks. God's taken Joseph somewhere, and next week when we get to chapter 41, we'll see what God has been doing this whole time. But let's remember, in every event, every circumstance, every interaction with people, God is sovereign. We are not catching him by surprise. God is not distant and aloof, figuring this out after the fact. God is actively engaged in orchestrating the affairs of human history and our lives to bring about his ultimate plans and purposes. And the book of Genesis has been screaming that message from the very beginning. Even our setbacks, God is sovereign over those as well. That's easier said than done, isn't it? Lastly, again, sometimes setups are disguised as setbacks, and again, God does some of his best work when in the midst of these setbacks. God's taken us to the promised land, folks, but that line from Egypt to the promised land is not a straight line. I don't know anybody in the Bible who had a straight line to the promised land. Even Jesus had to go to Calvary. And so we need to embrace the failures, the disappointments, the setbacks, the step backs. 4 steps forward, 2 steps back, 5 forward, 3 back. Embrace them because God's sovereign. He's developing character. He's trying to teach us who he is in the midst of it. Joseph is learning, and he got 2 years to figure out who God is. 2 years. God left him incarcerated, all alone, to focus his attention on his God, the God that God knows he loves. So, Lord, here we are. Thank you for this narrative about your fantastic son, Yosef. Lord, his name means to add. And what you've added to his life is a whole lot of setbacks. A whole lot of failures, a whole lot of setbacks, a whole lot of disappointment and despair. Why? Because you're all about the setup. God, you're going to deliver him to the promised land. You're going to deliver him to the palace, but you've got to take him through the pit and the prison in order to get there. Lord, none of us would choose that. But you're sovereign and you know what's best for us. So God, here at Reconciled Church, Los Angeles, we humble ourselves and we admit to you today that we need to trust you for the journey. We need to trust you for where you are taking us, knowing that you are sovereign, that you are altogether good, and that you know what's best for us because you are our most excellent Father who is faithful in every conceivable way. So God, even when the setbacks are disappointing, even when we're embarrassed by them, even when there's shame in them, God, would you remind us that without setbacks, there is no setup. So God, help us to find your peace and your loving kindness in the midst of our biggest disappointments. So God, would you glorify yourself in all of this? Thank you for Joseph's life and what we're learning about who you are and how you deal with your people. In your name we pray. Amen.